Tata Housing presents RICS Power Talk on new rules, new games, for better or worse.
Hello and welcome everyone to the CEO's Dialogue at the RICS Real Estate Conference 2013 on regaining business confidence. I'm delighted to be a moderator of a very high-esteemed panel. Very quickly introducing the panelists, I've got Mr. Lalit Kumar Jain, who is the CMD Kumar Urban Development, who's also the chairman of CREDAI. Immediate next to him is Anshuman Magazine, who's the chairman RICS South Asia Board and CMD for CBRE South Asia. On the left of Anshuman is Boman Irani. Boman is the chairman and managing director of Rustamji and also the vice president of MCHI CREDAI. Chanakya Chakravarti, who's the managing director at JP Morgan Asset Management. And then we've got our own Sachin Sandhir, managing director of RICS South Asia. I've got a very interesting topic to discuss today, and that session is really harboring about what are the new rules and the new game in real estate that is coming about, and whether it is good or bad. And in that, we're going to talk about the policy reforms, the transparency, the ability of the foreign investors to understand India, and what can we do to attract more foreign investment. Just one very quick analysis I do want to give before we deep dive into this session. As Jones Lang LaSalle, every 2 years we do a transparency index. And it's unfortunate for me to say that, that India, which since 2006 had been going up on the transparency and in terms of the ranking had been gaining rank since 2006 on the real estate, from 2010 to 2012 actually has moved backwards. And which is, really nicely leads me into the first question, which I'm going to come to, Lalitji, you. Really, some of these reforms that have happened in the real estate industry, what do you think about these reforms, and where do you think both the private sector and the government needs to work hard to improve the transparency within our sector?
If we need to support economy, cause of housing or employment, we need great kind of reforms, and we have been talking about 4 reforms. Administrative reform, McKinsey says 40% is cost added just due to approval processes delays. Now, if that is one, and who is paying? The consumer is paying. Where it is going? To nobody, except for few corrupt. Second is land reform. Now, we talk of people traveling 2 hours to distant places. And I call it a psycho-economic issue. That 4 hours a day if one travels, how do you actually generate productivity out of him, and how do you find comfort in the family, and how do you educate or imbibe the culture or ethics in the next generation or the value system? Now we need city like Mumbai. We have gone back from 5 FAR to now 1.33, and now with lot of tags and fungible and so costs add on. We are talking about, barely providing shelter to top 2% of the population. Now, this is ridiculous. Third is tax reform. Now, 36% of the sale value is going towards tax. So a customer, when he is buying a property, 36% is going to various governments, central government, state government, local urban bodies, etc. And fiscal reform. Now, REIT. We had one draft 5 years back. Now we have another draft, which is definitely a welcome step, but without the support of fiscal support or tax support, how it will work, that has to be seen. Maybe the tax reform will come with it in due course of time. So these are the reforms which needs yesterday basis, and we need to move forward.
Anshuman and Sachin, what are your thoughts on what we need to do to bring more credibility into the Indian real estate industry?
That's a long list. So I'll just, it's a very long list, but I would keep it simple. I think first and foremost, the biggest challenge is how to make it easy to transact in the real estate market in India. I think we don't talk about this. Even if someone individually wants to buy a plot of land, institution wants to invest in land or developer wants to buy land for development, it is very difficult to transact in real estate. And if we can bring transparency to that, so land being digitized, title being transferred, taxation being, transparent, approval process being transparent, whatever it takes to make it easy, if you make it easier to transact in real estate, that itself will make a big difference. I think the policymakers have to pull their head out of the sand and look outside, that nobody is looking at, especially the institutional money is not looking at real estate. And that institutional money, both domestic and international, is massive. The big difference, as most of you would know here, between the Indian real estate market and the mature real estate market is that we do not have institutional players in the real estate market. So if we have the pension funds, the provident funds, the insurance sector, the banking sector putting money, not only putting money in real estate, but also holding assets like it happens in the US and Europe, that itself will bring credibility, it'll bring respect to the industry, it'll really improve the quality of real estate and the way one transacts in real estate.
Sachin, your thoughts on this?
We haven't, I mean, when FDI did open up, 2005, I don't think we presented the best story that we could have presented, and I don't think we utilized the opportunity. Maybe we didn't know the tricks of the trade. I guess we all had our learnings. Yes, there have been learnings, but it has come at a cost. And I think the most important aspect that has come across in this is the fact that delivery is pretty much key to the existence. I know a lot of it is, issues related to building approvals. That may be representative for a lot of projects, a lot of developers. It is not a general comment, but there are lots of operators who have not necessarily ensured that they haven't kept their promises. The second thing, and I say this again, despite the fact that, again, regulation authority is a step in the right direction, there was a need for a consumer redress mechanism to put maybe an ombudsman. I don't think professional bodies or trade bodies can perform that role, and I think that is a step in the right direction. Again, unfortunately, some of these initiatives are kind of led by, are led more to actually do something rather than, serve the purpose that they're supposed to serve. So right in terms of intent, but I don't think, right in terms of purpose. We do need to find a way to improve our perception as an industry to the key stakeholders till we get that industry status, till we look at, somebody looks at this, as a priority sector. I don't think, our concerns in terms of liquidity and some of the other issues are going to get addressed.
Sandeep, two quick questions, and these are perhaps more closer to home. Over the last 12 months, we've seen a number of policy reforms that have happened in Maharashtra, and I assume those policy reforms were done to bring down the cost of real estate. Have you seen over the last 12 months that the cost of real estate has come down due to these policy reforms? And then going forward, do you believe that the policy reforms that have taken place in the state of Maharashtra are going to bring down the land prices?
I think the policy reforms were not with the intention of bringing down the cost. I think the government was envying our profits and wanted a share of it. So they've actually gone ahead and increased our costs. Today in this market, I meet so many people and ask, why do you all hold inventory if you're on no sales? Why are you all not able to cut pricing? If we were making such abnormal profits, pick up the balance sheet of any company which is listed on the stock exchange, and you will see him not making money at all, 15%, 16% net. How do you justify increasing costs every year, linking it to a ready reckoner rate, and on top of it, the finance minister fixes the selling price across all cities in India? I have never seen that happen in any industry where I cannot sell below the ready reckoner. If I sell below the ready reckoner, I have to pay a tax on it. My buyer has to pay a tax on it. That bumps it up by 70%. So how do I cut costs? Where is there any intention to make the city of Mumbai affordable? So this is an industry which just defies logic. You have someone who sits there, makes his rules and regulations completely in isolation, not talking to the industry. And even if we object to it, they think we have a vested interest. The policies which the government of Maharashtra has introduced are very, very beneficial in one simple way. They brought transparency, but they brought it at a very high cost. If they do not rectify the cost part of it, it is not going to work. Secondly is they have removed the discretionary power among a lot of issues which were existing. So this will also deter people who are entering the industry purely with that intention of misusing FSI. So those things have been very good, but there has been a very huge cost, huge delay, and I think we've still not reached where we wanted to reach.
Chan, coming to you, with the economic downturn, the demand for residential has gone significantly down. Whilst we're seeing the prices of residential not really going down, do you believe that the developers are holding on to the inventory?
You've got to understand one thing. I mean, there are two buckets of developers with two buckets of land. One is the guys who held land historically, and therefore they have the ability to hold because of the sheer economics. The second is the group that has bought land in the current vintage. And in geographies like Mumbai, and here I would differ with my friend Sandeep, that the margins are superior to the extent that you don't have to offload all your stock straight up front. You sell as much as is required to fund construction and hold prices and offer inducements. And I'm not saying that every developer is doing it, but I think it's quite apparent. It's happening across the country. The fact that there is a cyclical slowdown cannot be denied. But I think it's a good thing because it just separates the men from the boys. You will have a Runwal or a Kumar, a Kolok or a Rustamji, provide the kind of product that the discerning customer is today demanding, and thereby having a natural shakeout in the market, which is where what he was saying, that the 5,000 odd names that get parried around, they're not going to survive, simply because it's this is free market economics at play.
Tata Housing presents RICS Power Talk on new rules, new games, for better or worse.
Bowman, coming to you, we heard Chan articulate that there are superior margins in the city of Mumbai, and there is a possibility to give inducement by reducing the prices. So why is that inducement not coming?
In business, I've got to look at two things. What's the replacement cost of what I'm selling in the market at this moment in time? And just to give you all an idea, I'm doing a project which has been, let's say, in the pipeline, thanks to environment, thanks to other things, for the last about 3.5 years, okay? And when I launch it today, what I realize is if I'm selling it at, let's say, a price of 20,000 rupees, if a new developer had to come into that area today and work that kind of transaction out, he'd actually have a cost of 20,000 rupees. Why would I try to not maximize on that particular profit or on that particular project? Because at the end of the day, it's a trade-off between interest costs and replacement costs of the material that I have. The second thing, superior margins are eroded thanks to funding costs going higher, thanks to the people cost rising, thanks to your taxation rising. I think Mr. Kumar mentioned that CREDA had done a study. Sir, it's 42% of every dollar paid or every rupee paid towards the purchase of a house, of every 100 rupees paid, 42 goes directly or indirectly into taxes, of which 11% is your last mile taxes. So where is the possibility of bringing down prices? The third, just to, you asked about policies in the last 2 years. Show me one policy that's improved housing stock availability. If you want to bring down prices, you've got to improve housing stock availability. I say let the market forces decide whether they want to build 4 bedrooms, 8 bedrooms, 15 bedrooms, or they all want to build 1-bedroom hall kitchens, because that is what the market forces will decide. What you as a government or as an agency that is supposed to promote housing is supposed to decide is how I can provide, instead of 1,000 homes a year coming into the market, 50,000 homes a year coming into the market. The fact of the matter lies is you have to look at what is going to improve the life of the people, not exactly how much money A, B, or C developer is going to make. Leave that to business sense.
I'm sure RICS has done its own, thought on what are some of the good points of that real estate regulation bill, and equally, Sachin, also understand how in more mature Western markets this regulation bill plays a role.
I think in terms of intent, you'll have to say that it's a step in the right direction. You needed a consumer redress mechanism, so it does provide you that. However, if you really look at it, I see it as a toothless tiger any which way. I mean, while we are very apprehensive and scared about the repercussions, but if in the current form that I see it, you're talking about an appellate tribunal at the central government level, and there's a dispute resolution process that has been defined at that level. But what has not been done is, of course, how will disputes be redressed at the state level, and which is really land being a state subject. I think it is still a long way in terms of actual implementation at the state level.
Just let me add out here. Let me tell you what the downsides of it is. I want to see one government project that's been announced and lived its entire cycle in the way it was planned to be. And what really comes out with the RERA is that if you decide to kind of, increase the time, and I was at one of the forums, Anuj, where you were there, where the officer concerned waxed eloquent about how good it is, etc., but he didn't have an answer to a lot of issues. So it's like saying, Ram's army had to attack Lanka, and Ram was sitting somewhere, and everybody had to just... There is nothing that's been said as to what really happens in case, you do not live in the timelines. On day one, you're supposed to identify every single consultant that you will work with. What happens in case those consultants need to be changed because they're inefficient? What happens if a project gets delayed due to, I was told when I asked the question, if you remember, that, if it's going to take 6 years, why don't you write 7? Just be on the safer side. Which buyer is going to come and buy with me if I just kind of prolong a project which could be done in 3 years and say, because, let's build a safety margin, and everyone in my organization builds a safety margin and says, let's build it over 6 years. It is ridiculous. Please introduce it to a target audience, check the results, and then put it on a countrywide, test or sale. You've gone ahead and decided to do this. You don't have offices in place. We don't know who to approach. There's one website which, like the income tax website, will crash more often than not. And you decide to kind of penalize people on it.
Anshuman, a very pertinent question, one, given where the rupee has moved in comparison to the dollar, and perhaps from an outsourcing perspective from the US, it's become now cheaper to do work in India. Are you seeing demand from offices who are outsourcing work out of the US into India improving? One. And second, on the retail side, are you seeing demand improve given the FDI liberalization that the government did for the retail sector in the recent past?
As far as the office space is concerned, since last 3 years, the demand, as people know, has been declining overall. The last number, I think, is 28 million square feet we'll do this year. But the good news, I feel, is that there was a time when there was no demand. 7, 8, 9 years back, when the market was slow, there was nothing happening. So at least it is at a slow pace. At least there is some demand. The market is still active. As far as outsourcing is concerned, we've not seen, and that was a theory, that if the rupees become cheaper, it will drive more outsourcing. Outsourcing is going on, but I don't think there's a major impact. Maybe we will see that in the next 6 months' time. I think it will certainly make a difference. There was someone I was talking to who was visiting from the US, and they said, this is the first time we think the hotels are priced right, because the hotel, it was so expensive because the rupee is devalued. He says, the first time I'm coming to India, I feel I'm paying the right price for the hotel I'm staying in. Similarly, our cost of manpower had gone up. And this rupee becoming weaker, I think will have some impact, but will not be the only driver. What has to happen is, that the global economy has to pick up, and especially for the office market in particular, because even now, I would say more than 80% of the demand comes from multinational companies. And till the time the economies don't improve, we will not see a big push. But my gut feel is that the office market will continue to see activity, but at a slower pace. As far as retail is concerned, I think what is not understood, we only talk about reforms from India, and the retailers really looking at the country. The fact is, India still does not have the purchasing power which a lot of the retailers require. We sitting in Mumbai and Delhi or the major cities think that all of a sudden there's so much wealth. The fact is, the scale a lot of the retailers require and the price points they want to sell at, they cannot get in India right now. So FDI coming into retail is definitely very, very positive. It will have a big impact, but I think that impact to show on the ground, it will take at least 2 to 3 years.
Very interesting. Thank you, Anshuman. Chan, last question to you. We've heard this buzzword of REIT, REITs coming in. Do you think REIT will come? And what's the time frame? And two, how do the current regulations read in comparison to more transparent markets overseas?
I think for the institutional investor, this will be great news, and I believe for the economy as well, because the pension funds, the insurance companies at a global level, this gives them an access to owning property without taking that dreaded development risk. Number one. Number two, for the retail investor, for you and me, to go in and be able to own the best building that Sandeep Runwal or Baman Irani is building, without having to go in and just as a fractional owner, is a great prospect, and it provides diversification. It provides liquidity, which direct real estate doesn't provide you with. And last of all, but not least of all, it provides transparency. We've been talking about it. And I think, all of these factors point towards the fact that, it has to be done. What you call it, whether you call it a REIT, whether you call it a collective pool scheme, really doesn't matter. But it has to come. When it'll come is a billion-dollar question, really.
Thank you, Chan. Last word, Lalitji, from your side, given that you are the chairman of CREDAI, if we were to fast forward and say we were sitting on this panel organized by RICS, Sachin will have more gray hair, I perhaps will have very little hair, and we were in 2020. So we're moving 7 years from where we are today. What do you think would have happened to the Indian real estate?
My hairs would have been completely out.
Well, they may have come back. Richfield may have given you a different look.
Well, friends, Anuj, I'm eternally optimistic guy. 18.3 million housing shortage as per housing department of Government of India, 24 million as per McKinsey. All developers sitting here, I think will multiply minimum 10 times within 7 years. Proactive policies will happen in this country, because when we touch bottom, when we are at our worst morale, India always comes back. According to me, it's going to be a huge growth coming times. We'll make up for whatever time we have lost. And we are in for huge technological advancement because skilled manpower is limited. Very soon, and I think most of the developers who are in business on a large scale are now talking technology. Therefore, deliveries will be better quality and better in timing.
Well, on that optimistic note, I would like to end this panel. Over the last 9-10 years, we've certainly moved in the right direction on the policy reforms. We heard both some good and some not so good factor, but as Lalitji said, is that going forward, there will be these policy changes, and these policy changes will be towards the betterment. Thank you very much to the RICS to have put together this panel. Thank you.
Tata Housing presents RICS Power Talk on new rules, new games, for better or worse.